Minister Carney came in the spring. He and I had a discussion. He asked me to stay for the transition and sort of the transition of Canada's new government, but also in the first months of the Trump administration. I agreed to do so, but I did say to him that I was wanting to leave in 2026. And so right now, we are at a phase where more and more our discussions are going to be part of the CUSMA, the Canada-U.S.-Mexico Trade Agreement Review, which is starting up in earnest in the new year. And it's the right time to put a team in place that's going to be here to see those discussions through.
The Canada's ambassador to the United States of America, Kristen Hilsman, has officially communicated her resignation from the office in the eve of the new year. Kristen Hilsman has been known to be the first female ambassador to have served longer between Canada and the United States of America, appointed in the office in the year 2019 and resumed the duty in the year 2020. Kristen Hilsman initially served as the deputy ambassador to the United States of America, and she has been remarked with very, very wonderful events, like, for example, trade negotiation between Canada and the United States of America. At the same time, the lady is known to have been one of the chief negotiators between China and Canada that secured the release of the two Canadians that were arrested in the People's Republic of China. Let's dive into details.
Yeah, especially because it's a difficult moment in the Canada-U.S. relationship. Trade talks are stalled and the CUSMA review starts next year. Now the person with the most experience, expertise, and the most history with the Trump administration is stepping down. Kristen Hilsman has been in this role since 2020, appointed by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. She was asked to stay on when Prime Minister Mark Carney was elected. She was even promoted this summer. Hilsman was given additional duties, named Canada's lead trade negotiator, and she is respected across partisan lines in both Canada and the U.S. A source with direct knowledge of the situation tells me Hilsman had expressed to the Prime Minister she wanted to leave in 2026, and by leaving now, there's enough time for a transition to ensure that a new team is in place at the embassy for what is going to be a very intense year. Well, it's not unusual for a new Prime Minister to change up an ambassador. It is somewhat unexpected because of that promotion she was recently given. However, she has done this job for a really long time. Before this, she served as deputy ambassador, and she had a lead role in the CUSMA negotiations during Trump's first term. It's a job that has become increasingly difficult given the unpredictable environment.
Yeah, no kidding. And Katie, heading into 2026, that environment is expected to be even more volatile.
Yeah, Canada is pushing to restart talks to get U.S. tariffs removed or at least lowered. Those talks stalled after Donald Trump was upset by that anti-tariff ad run by Ontario Premier Doug Ford. And then separately, you have the CUSMA review, the possible renegotiation of the most important trade deal in the country. The U.S. is looking to make changes to squeeze concessions out of Canada. Sources tell CBC News Carney is considering a longtime friend to replace Hilsman, Mark Wiseman, who he added to his Canada-U.S. Advisory Council earlier this year. However, that decision is not yet final.
There has been a long-standing trade negotiation deal between Canada and the U.S., and Ambassador Kristen has overseen many of these moments. In February 1st, the year 2025, United States, under the leadership of President Trump, actually imposed a very heavy tariff on the Canadian goods that could go up to 25%, and most of these were on the imports. 10% of the tariffs on the Canadian goods were focused actually on the energy products, and the tariff took effect on February 4th, the year 2025, and were later increased to 35%. That could be in August 1st, the year 2025, especially the United States tariff on Canada targeted the steel and aluminium that was struck by 25%. 35% was actually laid on the Canadian goods generally, and 10% of the tariff was on the energy and potash. These were some of the main key agendas that the negotiation deal, trade deal actually between Canada and the US has been composed of. And this could have been the right time for the ambassador to stay and oversee these negotiations, as she is considered to be more experienced and understands what it takes to convince President Trump, to lay down his burden on Canada so that the two nations can continue living mutually in great friendship.
As the clock ticks closer to midnight towards the deadline U.S. President Donald Trump set for his tariff threats on Canadian goods,
it is nerve-wracking. Just, I hope everything eventually will sort itself out.
It's just a weird time, and I don't really know what to think about it.
All we want is fairness for our country.
in the name of fairness, this afternoon Trump signed an executive order increasing a tariff on Canadian goods to 35% as of August 1st, claiming it's in response to the flow of fentanyl across the border. Already in place is a 10% tariff on Canadian energy resources like potash and 50% on Canadian steel and aluminum exports to the United States. The good news, nearly 90% of Canadian goods are exempt from tariffs, says the Royal Bank of Canada, under the current free trade deal, the Canada-United States-Mexico Agreement, or CUSMA.
They have been charging very, very high tariffs to our farmers, some over 200%. And they've been treating our farmers very badly.
As Canada remained hopeful for a deal earlier today, Trump warned on social media that Mark Carney's plan to recognize Palestine statehood could prevent one, before reiterating unfounded gripes about agriculture, something that's not currently up for negotiation, already bound by the CUSMA free trade agreement Trump signed in his first term in 2018. So far, Trump has averted a global trade war of his own making by signing several trade deals and granting a 90-day extension to Mexico, citing unique complexities. Internally, Trump's tariffs are facing potential stumbling blocks. Two small businesses are legally challenging Trump's tariffs, arguing in federal appeals court that the president doesn't have the authority to impose tariffs without congressional approval. The case will likely head to the Supreme Court. For Canadians, it's wait and see as to how this tariff increase will impact businesses and consumers.
The resigning ambassador has not specifically come out to say the reason behind her resignation, but while connecting on the dots, we get to understand that she has overseen many trade negotiation deals and seems that they were not of a great success. And so she feels like she would let somebody to spearhead the deal, because recently there's going to be a very big negotiation deal between Canada, US, and Mexico, and Ambassador Hillman is resigning due to maybe that upcoming trade deal negotiation, so that to allow somebody else to spearhead it, if that would bring a success. And as she was talking in the interview, this is what the ambassador had to say.
Ambassador Hillman, thank you for being here tonight. Ambassador, you've made it very clear that the decision to go was yours. But I have to let you know that when the news came out, the reaction of a lot of people was a bit of confusion. You know, you were promoted to chief negotiator with the U.S. in the summer. You effectively have the most experience and face time with the Trump administration. So why go now in the middle of this tough moment?
Right. Well, thanks for having me. And look, I think where I'd start is I'm in my 9th year here in Washington, and I've been ambassador for 6 years. When Prime Minister Carney came in the spring, he and I had a discussion. He asked me to stay for the transition and sort of the transition of Canada's new government, but also in the first months of the Trump administration. I agreed to do so, but I did say to him that I was wanting to leave in 2026. And so right now, we are at a phase where more and more our discussions are going to be part of the CUSMA, the Canada-U.S.-Mexico Trade Agreement review, which is starting up in earnest in the new year. And it's the right time to put a team in place that's going to be here to see those discussions through. So it just seemed like a natural point.
So your resignation didn't come as a surprise to the Prime Minister at all?
No, this is something that we've been working on together.
If you thought that your continued presence at the table with the Trump administration would help, would you stay?
Oh, I have been a public servant for 30 years, and I have been, for most of that time, a trade expert and negotiator. I have devoted my life to, promoting Canada and Canadians' interests, and I would not make a decision that I felt was not good for Canada. And I feel that the decision right now, as I say, is at a time when we can make a transition to a team that can see these negotiations through. I am here as an advisor and a guide to them. And I'm here for a little while too to make sure that transition goes smoothly. So I put Canada first. And that's, in fact, why I think right now is the right moment to move along.
So, in a way, then, is perhaps a new face key to maybe restarting trade talks?
I think what we're going to see is, as I say, more and more our discussions with the United States will be centered around the review of the CUSMA. Obviously, we will be fighting hard for steel, aluminum, autos, lumber in the context and where in whatever format is most effective to provide relief for Canadians as soon as possible and those affected sectors as much as possible. But we've been in discussions with Mexico and with the U.S. around how we're going to move forward in the new year in that particular structure, the CUSMA review structure. So I think we're going to see that be the dominant place for the discussions.
Are you of the view that trade talks will start before the CUSMA deadline comes up?
Well, yeah, I think what we're going to do, what I know we're going to do is that we are going to start meeting with the United States, with Mexico, with all three of us together in the new year. And we will be preparing our analysis. We've all done consultations. We'll continue to do those consultations at home. We will be preparing analysis around what we think could be achieved in this review, whether there are changes to the agreement we think are important at this time. And that work will start, as I say, in the new year. And then it sort of comes to a discussion point at the political level, at the ministerial level in July.
You're a diplomat. I hear you being diplomatic. What won't you miss about this post?
Oh gosh, look, it's been the privilege of my professional life to be here and to have this great privilege, but like heavy responsibility. I'm looking forward to coming home. I'm looking forward to spending time with my parents who live, out west, who I see less than I'd like to. I'm looking forward to reconnecting with Canadians. One of the greatest privileges of this job is how many Canadians reach out to me literally every day and express support, give me their perspectives, but primarily express support and try and shore up the team here. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for the trust that Canadians have put in me, that the Prime Minister has put in me, that previous Prime Minister put in me, and I'm gonna miss that. But I'm looking forward to coming home.
And joining me now from the Canadian Embassy in Washington is Ambassador Hillman. Ambassador, this must be such a bittersweet day for you. A lot of people will be asking, why now, in the middle of a trade war?
Oh, thanks, and thanks for having me, Omar. And you're right, it is bittersweet. It is been the privilege of my professional life to be able to serve Canada and Canadians here in Washington. But the truth is, I have in my 9th year here in DC, and 6 as ambassador. I spoke to the Prime Minister about this, and I said it's time, I think, for me to start a new chapter. He had asked me back in the spring to stay on for the transition of his government, the new government, and the transition to the new Trump administration. I agreed to do that, and I'm honored to have done that, and I'm proud to have done that. But I did say I will be wanting to head out in 2026, and 2026 is just around the corner. And at the same time, we are moving to a phase of our discussions with the United States with the CUSMA review, the Canada-US-Mexico Trade Agreement review. That's going to start up in the new year. And I think it's important that we have someone in place that is going to be here through the conclusion of those discussions. So there's never a good time to leave a position like this, but I think that this is a natural point of departure for me.
So was this decision entirely yours, or did someone suggest that you should be leaving?
It was my decision. It was my decision, and in fact, as I said, it was something I discussed with the Prime Minister many months ago when he first came into office and asked me to stay on, and I said I would, but that I was interested in, in transitioning out. It is, as I say, I'm in my 9th year here. It's been a remarkable, remarkable privilege to work for Canadians and for Canada here. But there are other things that I'd like to do, and so I'm going to move on and go home. I'm really looking forward to going home and spending a little time in Canada, quite frankly.
Now, based on the resignation of Ambassador Kristen Hillman, Do you think it was the right time for the ambassador to resign? Or the ambassador could have resigned after the negotiation deal between America, Mexico, and Canada? On the other hand, what do you say about the service of the ambassador? Because we get to understand that she is the longest serving ambassador for Canada to United States of America. 6 years in the office. And that proves the effort or the ability of a woman. If you feel like ambassador could have resigned after the negotiation between America, Mexico, and Canada, please remember to leave the comment in the comment section. Remember also to like, share, and subscribe. Always meet you here at the Blue Articles. Take care.